Thank you. Let's keep that conversation going now. Joining me is Independent MP Dai Le and Labor member for Robertson, Gordon Reid. There would be many of your constituents, and both there in Western Sydney and on the Central Coast, that do need the NDIS. But first to you, Gordon Reid, what would you say to your constituents about the budget when it comes to the NDIS and how perhaps it does need to be reined in?
Yeah, look, and thanks for having me again. You know, the NDIS is a world-class system that provides significant supports across the lifespan for those with significant disabilities. And what I'd say to these reforms is that we are now looking at those participants on the NDIS who have a mild to moderate diagnosis, and that they can be better helped, they can be better assisted through what's called the Thriving Kids program. So that's basically really focusing and looking in on those early interventions, as Minister Plibersek was just saying. Yeah. So looking at early interventions in the early childhood space, in the primary school space, in high school, making sure that they can have targeted therapies when they need them. So I'm talking about therapies that are undertaken by speech pathologists, occupational therapists, physiotherapists and the like, those who work in the disability sector to provide those with, as the example used, mild autism, for example, so that they can receive the care that they need. And that way we can make sure that the NDIS is sustainable into the future, particularly for those with profound disability. And
Gordon, as a medical doctor yourself, do you see autism more generally overdiagnosed? What is behind, do you think, this explosion in diagnosis?
Yeah, look, and I suppose in my medical practice, I work in the emergency department, and that's very different to general practice. But what I would say is there is more people being diagnosed with autism, and that is part of the reason that we need to make sure that they have early intervention through the Thriving Kids program. And that's why we're going to stand up an advisory body to make sure that we can get this right and that all children and those with disability can get the services that they require. And I'm sorry, Laura, there's a division that's been called in the House and I've got to run, so I do apologise. Okay. Thank you.
Does that mean you're off as well, Di?
No, I don't think I need to, but I can continue the conversation.
Okay, good. Well,
just to that point,
please.
It's definitely we definitely need a reform in order to ensure that the funding goes towards those most in need, that is physical disability, and obviously, and I agree that you know, we need to ensure that there's early intervention.
Thank you.
And for me, my concern is around for the multicultural communities in Western Sydney and overall, that there is support for that transition over to the this new program for young kids, with kids who are, you know, diagnosed with autism. That is something, sometimes, you know, most of the times, the government comes up with amazing headline sort of policies, but what's underneath the policy, we need to really explore, because that's underneath there, that's where the whole problem could, you know, exist. So it's great to have Thriving Kids program and making sure that the transition, our communities like in Fowler, are supported towards that transition, because there's a lot of confusion at the moment in multicultural communities around this whole changes that's happening in the NDIS system.
Yeah, there certainly is. I mean, one of the paediatricians that spoke to Jonathan Lee for this Sky News special did put something, I think, in front of us that's quite obvious, if not confronting, and that is the parents' role in all of this, and how digital devices, iPads, phones and the like can contribute to developmental and behavioural problems in children.
Well, I'm not the expert, but obviously, you know, if you don't, you know, ensure that your children have exposure to outdoor, to interaction with other kids, to ensure that they have a normal childhood, and if you put them in front of just a screen all the time, I have no doubt that will impact their ability to develop in terms of, you know, social skills, speaking, you know, your mind have to be constantly, you know, you use your fingers to write and to create, and you climb trees or you run. That keeps a young, you know, a human being human. That's what you do, right? But if we are now moving in a world whereby technology seems to replace, be front and centre of our daily lives, it is, even for adults, we scroll on that phone constantly, we sit and watch our screen on our YouTube or whatever. We need to move away from that and have more active lifestyle in order for us to, stay engaged and stay healthy in our mind as much as our physical body.
And Dai, I just want to ask you about this terrorist designation of the IRGC, the Iranian group. Now, America did designate this group a number of years ago. Australia has only decided to do that then in light of the ASIO allegations coming through. But the Iranian community itself has been warning about this group for quite some time. Do you think the government should have acted and could have acted earlier on that designation?
Look, can I just throw back to what the Minister Plibersek just said this morning? I mean, obviously the government and the Minister, I'm not defending them, but you can only act on what information that ASIO or, our security, experts would provide to the government. So you can't act earlier. Obviously, diplomacy is very important. We live in a very multicultural and globalised world, and we can't just and do something without proper information from our security experts. So I would just, the government is in that position to decide when to do, expel the Iranian ambassador based on the information they were given. But I probably will not have that expertise to comment on that matter further, Laura.
Fair enough.
I can talk about economy.
We'll leave that for another time. We're always talking about that, the cost of living, and we'll look at rates a little further down the track. We'll see you next week, Dai. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Laura.